Welcome back to Chapter 3. This is Slide 6. This is one of the first organelles of the cell that we're going to look at called the plasma membrane. It surrounds the entire cell. It's responsible for the integrity of the cell's interior. It helps keep the cell's shape, among other things. It's made of a substance known as phospholipids. There are a lot of different lipids or fats. This is the primary lipid or fat that is found in the plasma membrane. There's also fats like cholesterol and glycolipids, which have a carbohydrate chain, and these glycolipids help cells recognize each other in the body. Your workbook talks about the glycocalyx, so you may want to take a look at that, and there's a little gray box called clinical application that discusses more about the glycocalyx. There's also proteins in the cell membrane. We're still on bullet point 2, and there's lots of different types of proteins that are in the cell membrane. There's structural proteins that give the membrane its size and shape. There's receptor proteins that help the cell communicate through substances like hormones and neurotransmitters. There's transport proteins, which allow for passive diffusion of some molecules like glucose, sodium ions, chloride ions. And these would normally be unable to pass through the membrane on their own. They require assistance. There's also channel proteins and carrier proteins which are embedded in the cell membrane that help substances enter the cell as needed. Here on a diagram in your workbook, I want to show a picture of the plasma membrane. It's a double layer of phospholipids. So here's the top layer of phospholipid here. Bottom layer is also made up of phospholipids, and we'll talk about the middle here in just a minute. But there are proteins embedded also in this plasma membrane in addition to the phospholipids. These proteins have different roles, and for example, channels, which would be over here. This is a protein channel right here. This is a passageway that allows water and some dissolved substances to move through the membrane. Some channels are always open, whereas others can be thought of gates, like this one right here, that open and close under different circumstances. A specific example of that would be ion channel proteins, which allow specific ions like sodium to pass through the protein channel. These channels are regulated by the cell and either open and close depending on the cell's needs. Going back to our slide, bullet point 3, this membrane is semi-permeable. It's not solid like concrete or a rock. It allows substances to pass through it. Some substances can pass, not all substances can pass through. It's up to the cell as to what substances it needs and which can come through or not come through. Substances on the last bullet point can either come through passively. This would be called passive diffusion. That wouldn't require any energy. Or sometimes there's energy needed to kick it through one of those channels, one of those proteins, and if energy is needed, it's called active filtration or active diffusion, and it will require energy from your body in the form of ATP. The next question for you to think about is, what is ATP? Have you ever heard of ATP? Google it now.